Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Lincoln Journal Star's Life in the Red podcast. Luke Mullin and Amie Just back at it. Episode 8 of this fall, by the way. Keep churning these weeks on, these episodes out.
It all runs together for me.
Just wait until we're on episode, 22 or whatever. Then it's
all, yeah.
We've gone too far then.
Yeah.
Too much.
Too far.
Yeah.
Too far in the future. Information overload. Anyway.
But plenty to get to today. We'll get to Husker football in a little bit. Big win over Northern Illinois. First win of the Matt Rule era. Some more quarterback discussion, of course. Personnel updates, injuries, good things, bad things, all sorts of stuff to discuss. We're going to get started with Husker volleyball today because two huge matches that they had, two big tests, and they passed both of them so well. First off, it was a big road match. They're at Stanford. Came in with that one, a 3-1 win. Didn't even go to 5. I was really impressed those third and fourth sets, just how composed the team was, and a really tough Stanford team to go out there and beat.
Yeah, you knew that this Nebraska team will always have a chance just based off of what they can do and what they've shown that they can do. But I was really impressed with their poise and how they rallied. They played so well, and so many players played really well. Which you're starting to see that as a trend. It's not just one or two people stepping up to the plate, it's everybody. And they hadn't beat Stanford since like 2008 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So very impressive win for those guys.
Yeah, Merritt Beeson, Harper Murray both had excellent games. I love that block that Beck Alec had there with one of those last few points fired up there on the bench. That was funny, funny to watch. But yeah, great road win. Then they come home and have another ranked opponent, Kentucky, and another win, 3-1 in that one. But I think one of the interesting things was, they were without two key contributors. Lainey Choboy injured in a practice collision, not anything long term. They said just missed that match, but that's pretty normal, volleyball injury. But Lindsay Krause, on the other hand, involved in a hit and run accident on O Street, which is pretty wild, just to miss a match because of that. But obviously, as we kind of learned some of the details from Lincoln Police, from John Cook, not her fault at all, just something completely random that happened in traffic, and a really weird situation there for Nebraska volleyball.
Yeah, it's really infuriating, actually, because obviously this is so random. These things happen to people across the world every day. But O Street is it's so frustrating. I hate driving on O Street. I refuse to do it unless I have to, just because people are crazy out there. And it's unfortunate that Lindsay was on the receiving end of that. Thankfully, she's okay. This could be worse, right? Missing a match is one of the smaller things that could happen, right? Mm-hmm. So both her and Lainey were expected to practice in some form yesterday. So we will see how they continue to progress in their respective recoveries. But hopefully they are both back out there on Friday. And if they're not, we just hope that they are continuing on the right trend in their recovery.
Yeah, definitely. We all live in Lincoln here, obviously. And, O Street, lots of people speed on there. It's one of the busiest streets, lots of major intersections. Really unfortunate that a lot of traffic, collisions do happen there all the time. So obviously, if it was Lindsay, if it was anybody else, that was kind of the point that John Cook was making, that hey, this stuff is happening too often. Lindsay, it happened to Lindsay, but as you said, it could have happened to anybody theoretically. We're talking about it because it is one of the main players for this Husker volleyball team.
Yeah, I was T-boned on O Street in high school.
Yeah.
I was at that 25th and O. I just left that Burger King, which is no longer there, which makes me feel really old. But I was turning left on O Street to go eastbound, and somebody T-boned me on the driver's side, ran that red light there, speeding, driving crazy, wouldn't admit fault. Thankfully, didn't drive away, but wouldn't admit fault, said it was my fault, and it was a mess. But yeah, no, it affects a lot of people, not just Nebraska volleyball.
Yeah, frustrating situation. That's why we've seen a lot of response online about that. And as you said, hopefully Lindsey will come back strong here very soon. But kind of the positive here for Nebraska in terms of their season, these two matches going the right way for them, finishing that non-conference schedule, undefeated 9-0, stat from our Brent Wagner. This has happened for the first time for Nebraska since 2016 when they made it to the Final Four. They're number 2 in the national poll, beginning Big Ten play. I mean, you got to feel so good about where this team is at right now. I mean, obviously undefeated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Nebraska set themselves up really well for what's to come. They played a really tough Creighton team. Granted, they were down no assists, so that, changes things a bit. Stanford and Long Beach and Kentucky, they put themselves in a position to play some really, really talented teams, and they came out of that relatively unscathed. So you have to feel good about where they're at, and you have to feel good about the growth that they continue to make. And Big Ten starts this week, and it's their two matches are against two ranked teams. They have Ohio State on Friday night. It's a late one. First serve is at 8 p.m. And on Sunday, they play Minnesota. So another ranked team. I think they're 11 or 12. So tough test right out of the gate for them. And then for those of you, Wisconsin, they don't play Wisconsin until October 21st. That is the same day as the Northwestern football game. If that Northwestern football game is not at 11 a.m., I am going to be very angry because I would like to go to both.
Could be a long day.
Will be a long day. I already know. But yeah, so they're in a good spot, but they need to continue to keep making the progress that they should be making.
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about the development too. I mean, we were sitting here before the season talking about these freshmen, and it was like, okay, they got on campus early, they went on these trips. Like, we were expecting them to be far along, but I think 9 matches into the year, they've raised those expectations as well. So that's the challenge to keep improving, keep raising the bar there. 9-0 start for Nebraska volleyball heading into Big Ten play. So on to our football discussion. Of course, the big win there on Saturday, 35-11 over Northern Illinois. First win of the Matt Rule era, but the story from the game, undoubtedly quarterback Heinrich Harburg. His stat line, 21 carries for 98 yards and a touchdown, went 14 for 24 passing, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looked pretty good out there, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I really liked the way that he orchestrated the first drive from the scripted plays from Marcus Satterfield. I thought that really set the tone. I think that drive gave not only him, but Thomas Fedoni and the offensive line a bunch of confidence, just to know that they could do it, right? And then, the second drive didn't start off so hot with a strip sack. Mm-hmm. But they rallied from that and had a pretty convincing win. Otherwise, I thought Harburg looked great out there. There were some throws that he wanted back, right? Some decisions that he probably wouldn't have made if it was like a practice situation. But, he didn't throw any interceptions. He only fumbled once, and it was a forced fumble. It was, not an unforced error on a botched mesh or something like that. So I was pleased with it. Good for the Carney kid to do well in his first start. But yeah, we will. Now they've got a decision to make, don't they?
Absolutely. And what I liked from Heinrich too was I just thought he looked comfortable running the offense. And, I was interested to see, when he was in the pocket, right? Was he going to be nervous? Trying to roll outside? Was he going to stay in the pocket too long? I thought he was very well timed on most of their passing plays, getting the ball out, getting to those reads. And in terms of his mechanics too, we noticed him throwing off his back foot a little bit. He kind of has more of like a sidearm motion on some of those short passes, but it got the job done. He threw a touchdown just like that. It doesn't, I don't think it really matters necessarily, the arm angle as long as the ball gets there on time, and really, really good as a runner too. I asked him after the game because there were a lot of times, where he didn't slide down, he lowered his shoulder into opponents, and he basically was like, yeah, that's just kind of his style. He wants to be a big, powerful, tough runner out there. And, I think what he brought to that offense, he did bring that toughness, brought that fire, and that most definitely showed. And only that one turnover that you said too, the fumble, that was in the pocket. That was one of those circumstances, but happened very early in the game, and nothing really indicated that there were going to be more struggles there as that game went on. So really, really strong starting debut from Harburg there. But the other factor in this win was how good this defense is playing. Apart from that field goal off that turnover, that game-ending touchdown drive, Northern Illinois, 9 punts and an interception. Like, that is just dominance throughout the course of that game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Northern Illinois did not reach 100 yards of total offense until, what, there were like 2 minutes left?
That's right. We were on the field
for that. We were counting it down, seeing if it's going to happen. That is by itself an incredible achievement. I'm very impressed by what this defense has done. And I asked Matt Rule after the game, singling out Nash, of course. Mm-hmm. And he's like, honestly, like, I couldn't tell you the individuals. I just think they're all doing really well. They're, swapping in and out a lot.
Coach speak alert.
No kidding. But
there's truth.
But there's truth
yeah,
to it.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to keep up with who is where and who is doing what and who is responsible for what. And I think that is part of what has made this defense so good so early, is because offenses have no idea what to expect from them because, like, one of those linebackers may be playing all of the linebacker positions. And so how do you scout him when you don't know what his responsibilities are on any given play? It's very fascinating.
Yeah, and in particular with Nash, I think they played 12 different defensive linemen in that game, and I think he led the way with like 29, 30-ish snaps, and there were other guys with like 20 snaps. I mean, that's a very low amount for the impact that he made, mostly there in the first half. And talking about this rotation, pulled some numbers here a couple days ago, but Nebraska's played 36 different players on defense through 3 weeks, and the snap counts, of course, for the top starters, top guys at these positions, much, much lower than last year. For example, on the defensive line, Garrett Nelson was top guy last year, 64.5 snaps per game. Nash Hotmaker, 43.3 so far. And yeah, not a ton of snaps in this Northern Illinois game, so those numbers are down. But Luke Reimer, he's down about 12 snaps there at linebacker. Quentin Newsom, they're 18.5 fewer snaps per game already so far this year. I mean, that's a strategy from this coaching staff to keep those main guys fresh and to get these backups, these young players, valuable experience.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's working pretty seamlessly. There are some young guys that have made some mistakes, but that's going to happen. And you hope that through development and more live reps that those mistakes are going to be fewer and fewer. And you're not going to have them out there for the entire game. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be, bits and pieces and based on different situations and all of those different things. So, yeah, I'm really impressed with them.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, Northern Illinois, Louisiana Tech, those are, non-conference games, non-Power 5 teams. Those are, the chances where you expect to get these young players in. So we'll potentially see more of that this week. But a couple quick stats just to show the dominance of this Nebraska defense before we move on. 14 sacks that they've totaled through 3 weeks, had 21 all of last year. So on pace to completely blow that out of the water. They ranked 29th nationally in total defense and second nationally in rush defense, 46.3 rushing yards allowed per game. It's a pretty good marks there.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, Tony White has that unit playing at a very high level, which is very good because we have some personnel questions on the other side of the ball on offense. As you spoke to a couple minutes ago, we got a quarterback debate once again. It's continued. I mean, Heinrich Harburg played so well last week, but Jeff Sims working back to full health, officially listed as co-starters on the depth chart. Offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield, speaking on Tuesday, talked about how they were kind of testing out Sims' injured ankle, working his way back as a runner a little bit. And hopefully we'll get more of an update from Matt Rule on Thursday, but it's still going to be up in the air till Saturday in all likelihood.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You'll have the injury report, the pregame injury report come out a couple hours before kickoff. I don't think Matt will talk in specifics just to help, disguise what they're going to do.
True.
But if Jeff isn't 100% healthy, why play him this week? Just doesn't make any sense to me. If he's not fully ready, fully healed, why force it? We've seen that Heinrich can hold his own against, a group of 5 teams. So let him do that for another week and give Jeff another week off.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting, though. I mean, Sims was ruled questionable, in that pregame report last week. He was suited up. He was going through all the pregame workouts. When we were watching him, he was definitely avoiding putting weight on that injured ankle. So I'll be very, very interested to see how does that maybe change this Saturday. Is he looking very comfortable before that game? Because then you get the question of, should we expect maybe both of them to play if Sims is healthy?
No. And I say that because Marcus Satterfield was asked a similar question of that yesterday, and he admitted that it's coach speak before, which I appreciated. But he goes, if you have 2, you don't have 1. And he not a big fan of the dual quarterback situation. Mm-hmm. So based off of that, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it's likely they've got their guy. They'll roll with that, and we'll figure out on Saturday in all likelihood. But the other big issue here on offense, 2 major injuries suffered there in the Northern Illinois game. Gabe Irvin, dislocated hip. Ramir Johnson, dislocated shoulder. Both of them out for the season after undergoing surgery. A real gut punch to 2 guys who've been playing really well.
Yeah, I mean, I did not expect Gabe's injury to be that serious, and I think it was a surprise to everyone.
Definitely, yeah.
Because he talked afterwards, mm-hmm. And normally, for those of you who want to know how the sausage is made, if you're feared to have either like a minor or a serious injury, you do what you do post-game, and then you go for testing. You go get that done to see, preliminary tests, do what you can. He came and talked to us. So I don't think he thought it was going to be serious either, because why would he do that?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing, too, was like, I'm not sure exactly, when that happened during the game either, but I mean, he was out there for a lot of the game. It wasn't like, Ramir was out there for almost none of it. He got hurt. That was very clear very early, but Irvin was out there a lot. And as you said, he spoke afterwards. There wasn't like an ominous mood around him or anything. Like, he was in good spirits. Things were fine. You get that news, and it obviously shook up what they expect to do at running back in a big, big way. And the obvious answer here is Anthony Grant. He ran for 900 yards last year. That's a pretty good guy that you can rely on to step up when you need him to.
Yeah. I am not worried about him at all in terms of being able to carry the load there. You do wonder if his fumble issues have been resolved, because he did fumble a pretty costly one against Minnesota, and then he did not play at all against Colorado, which I think was a message. And now it's him, and there are some really young backups behind him that will surely be involved in the mix as well, with Emmett Johnson, Quentin Ives, and Trevin Lubin, who I thought he was going to break that one away at the very end of the game on
close.
Saturday. He was so close to it. So granted, regardless of how many guys that they want to rotate through there, wouldn't surprise me to see a combination of all 4 of them with Anthony leading the way.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that with all 3 of those other guys behind Grant, I think Johnson should definitely get some carries, shifty, change of pace back. He should get in there. Ives, I'm a little bit interested to see because he's a taller, like skinnier type of, back that you'd really necessarily expect to see, compared to Irvin, who's obviously, a stocky, powerful guy. They're going to have some different body profiles back there. Lubin, kind of the stockier type there, had a powerful run there at the end of the fourth quarter, as you noted. So, yeah, interested to see what they do there. Expecting to see some Emma Johnson there mixed in. But a third injury also tough, as if two wasn't bad enough. Third season-ending injury against Northern Illinois. Freshman quarterback Dwight Boodle, he will redshirt. Still has 4 years of eligibility. Only played in 3 games, but pretty tough one because the staff was high on him, was wanting to get him, 5, 6, 7 snaps these first couple weeks because they were expecting him to be a guy, 15, 20 snaps down the stretch.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. 3 season-ending injuries in 1 game. And this is not the first season-ending injury for this team this season. You go back a couple weeks ago, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. You go back before the season, you've got a couple more there. So this is my least favorite part about the sport is all of the injuries. And one other thing that I wanted to note, it's kind of a subplot, but Ramir looked really great on special teams in the return game. So I am curious to see their approach moving forward on kick returns.
Very true. He was on a lot of units too. Mm-hmm. He was a very big special teams player for him.
So his loss affects more than the offense, that's for sure.
Yep. So kind of the challenge for this week is get that offense going with all these question marks. Again, we'll see who's out there at quarterback, see who steps up at running back, but the opponent coming to town, Louisiana Tech, they have a 2-2 record, started their season in week 0. Those 2 losses are to SMU and North Texas. But kind of the interesting thing is they have quarterback injury problems of their own. Their quarterback, Hank Bachmeier, former Boise State starter, played at a really high level through 3 weeks, but suffered a shoulder injury last week. Their backups, Jack Turner, he stepped in. They're pretty high on him too, a little bit younger player, sophomore. But if Bachmeier can't go, that would be a big bonus there for the Nebraska defense to miss out going up against a top quarterback.
Yeah, and this Nebraska defense, I'm sure, would love to go against a young, inexperienced quarterback who hasn't necessarily done a lot in the protection game. Feels like Nebraska would take advantage of that, I think.
Yeah, I can hear some secondary players wishing for that, but we'll see what transpires with that. Either way, I think this Louisiana Tech offense is pretty decent overall. They've scored a good amount of points, run the ball pretty well. Got a good wide receiver, Smoke Harris, 6-year player, which great name for a wide receiver, by the way. Feels like he's going to burn you off the line of scrimmage there, but he has double the catches of anybody else on the team. Been very, very productive. But on the flip side, why they're 2-2, despite scoring 30+ points a game, their defense is really not great. Allowing 29 points per game. That's like 100th in the country. They're number 121 nationally in run defense, 205.2 rush yards allowed per game. So this is, it's kind of like changes things, not having an Irvin who, has shown that ability, but quarterback run game, Anthony Grant, you'd expect Nebraska to get a lot of production out of that run game again.
Yeah, I think Heinrich hits 100 and I think Grant hits 100 this week.
Really? Bold prediction. Well, it's a good way to talk into our weekly hot topic. We talked about Anthony Grant a little bit, but let's make some predictions here. Maybe a yard total, huh? How do we think that Anthony's how he fare in his return to the starting lineup?
I think he'll be all right. It wouldn't surprise me if there would be a fumble, maybe. But is it forced? What's the situation? I'm trying to keep relatively low expectations, even though I literally just said I expect 100 yards out of him this week. I think it's a good matchup for him to be successful.
Definitely. I think 15 to 20 carries, that should definitely be the plan. And, obviously games can go any sort of ways, but I think in particular, getting him outside the tackles if possible is going to be big. He can get a little bogged down sometimes on those interior runs. I'll be interested to see too how much of that read option game, that they want to work him in there. Get him some looks on that too as well. And the other thing too is, Ramir's good pass catching back. Gabe Irvin had a little bit of that too. And Anthony did a lot of that last year too. So be interested to see, throw some passes his way too. See what happens there. Get him on the outside.
Yeah, we'll see. Can't wait.
They're gonna be getting some things there into the game plan. But with all that in mind, offensive, uncertainty a little bit. Louisiana Tech uncertainty as well. Let's get into our score predictions before we get out of here. What do we got?
Nebraska 31, Louisiana Tech 12.
I'm very close. I got 28-14. Spread is really, really large. I think it's like 20,
It is
20
20.
points.
It is 20, 21, depending on the book as of 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is just how good the Nebraska defense has been. Again, Bachmeier, shoulder hurt, a little bit of uncertainty about that Louisiana Tech offense, and the fact that Harburg proved he can put up some points finally.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Nebraska scores more than 30 points, to be honest with you. And it just, okay, when do they, if they feel that they need to put in their backups at some point, how does that change things? So I'll be interested to see what happens on Saturday afternoon.
I was very dubious last week. I think I predicted like 21-16 or whatever. We were expecting such a low scoring game, right?
I think I predicted like 14-6, I think, last week. I was wrong, which happens. It's fine.
Can't doubt the Carney kid.
I thought Sims was going to play hurt, is what I thought was going to happen. Yeah. And then when Harburg went in, that prediction went out the window.
Absolutely. But as we said, I mean, he performed very well last week, established that level for the Nebraska offense. So that's what we're expecting. That's factored into our game predictions. Seeing what Harburg perhaps can do again. And we'll see on Saturday who's out there at quarterback, how Anthony Grant does. Again, 2:30 kick there at Memorial Stadium, Louisiana Tech for the Week 4 matchup. Make sure to stay tuned. JournalStar.com will have all the game coverage, post-game video analysis, game recap, Amy's column, as always, a highlight. So appreciate all of you tuning in to this week's Life in the Red. We'll see you next week.